U.S. and Israeli attacks have killed.
Boyd's back. I made it. Almost made it, I think. Allergies are bad today, though. Oh, shit. Is my stuff sounding natty? Hello? Hello? Check. Check. 1, 2. No. Check. 1, 2. What the fuck? I think we got it. There we go. Fixed it. All right. Got a lot of news to cover. We're still at war. Chat. We're still at war. Welcome. Believe it or not, we're still at war. It's a joke. Rhetorical. Okay. It's not me, right? B3. Check. And that's correct. All right then.
787 people since President Trump joined Prime Minister Netanyahu in a massive bombing campaign, striking 153 cities and more than 500 sites across Iran since Saturday. Much of the violence is directed at Iran's capital, Tehran, where thunderous explosions rang out for a third night in a row and into the daylight hours. Residents woke to scenes of widespread destruction, with city streets littered with debris from collapsed buildings. One attack hit Nulufar Square in eastern Tehran, flattening buildings and killing over 20 people. Dropsite News reports 2 explosions hit the area, a smaller strike followed by a larger double-tap attack that devastated much of the neighborhood. On Monday, mourners in the southern city of Minab held a mass funeral Monday for 165 schoolgirls and staff killed Saturday, folks, on the first day of the U.S.-Israeli strikes when a missile hit a girls' school. Meanwhile, red alert sirens have been activated across much of Israel, with the Israeli military reporting missile interceptions over West Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and Eilat. On Monday, Ali Larijani, the secretary of the Iranian Supreme National Security Council, warned, quote, Iran, unlike the United States, has prepared itself for a long war, he said. Iran's nuclear agency says there's been no leakage of radiological materials after a strike on its Natanz nuclear facility by the U.S.-Israeli coalition.
What the fuck?
Officials said this damaged the entrance to the site in Isfahan province, but there were no signs of increased radiation. On Monday, Rafael Grossi of the International Atomic Energy Agency said he'd seen no indication that Iran's nuclear facilities have been damaged latest U.S.-Israeli strikes.
We haven't seen major military activity targeting the nuclear facilities. We have been looking at different satellite images. There might be something there, not significant
really?
or comparable in any way to what we saw last time.
Global energy prices climbing and Iran's continued attacks on oil and gas infrastructure across the Gulf. On Monday, a commander in Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps declared the Strait of Hormuz closed, saying any ships attempting to cross the narrow shipping channel will be set afire. About a fifth of all oil consumed worldwide passes through the strait each day. At least 3 oil tankers have been struck so far. Qatar's state-owned fossil fuel company suspended all liquefied natural gas production after 2 of its facilities were hit. That followed a drone attack that halted operations at Saudi Arabia's largest domestic oil refinery. Oil production has also halted in Iraqi Kurdistan and in the Tamar gas field in the Mediterranean Sea off Israel's coast. Saudi authorities say 2 Iranian drones hit the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh, causing what they described as a limited fire and mine damage. The strikes came after the U.S. State Department urged Americans in 14 Mideast countries to leave. Meanwhile, Middle East Eye reports the Trump administration's stonewalling request by some Gulf states to replenish their supplies of air defense interceptor missiles, which typically cost about $4 million each, amidst reports that even the Pentagon may run low on interceptors in a matter of weeks. Iran's been launching $20,000 one-way attack drones at Gulf nations, hosting U.S. military bases, with about 10% of the drones slipping past defenses.
Damn. It's a good amount.
Israeli soldiers have invaded parts of southern Lebanon in Israel's largest escalation of fighting there since it signed a ceasefire deal with Hezbollah in late 2024. Israeli airstrikes have hit the capital Beirut for a second consecutive day, targeting residential neighborhoods. They also struck Lebanon's Bekaa Valley and the southern suburbs of Beirut. The Lebanese health ministry says the death toll from the attacks has climbed to 51, with 154 people injured. Meanwhile, Hezbollah claimed an attack on an air base in northern Israel. In the Gaza Strip, the World Food Program says a border crossing pivotal to providing food supplies to Palestinians is reopening after Israel closed Gaza's borders on Saturday and began its attacks on Iran. Despite the reopening of the Kerem Shalom crossing, human rights and aid groups have accused Israel of reinstating a starvation policy in Gaza. Philippe Lazzarini, the head of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, wrote, quote, after more than 2 years of unspeakable suffering and a spreading man-made famine, people still lack the most basic supplies despite increases in aid since the ceasefire, Lazzarini said. President Trump made his first public remarks Monday since unilaterally bringing the United States into a war with Iran. Trump spoke from a White House ceremony where he awarded the Medal of Honor to 3 Army soldiers, even as the Pentagon said the U.S. military death toll from what it's calling Operation Epic Fury had risen to 6. Trump dedicated a few moments to honor the service members who died before launching into a lengthy monologue about his renovations to the White House, including his plans to build a new ballroom.
I picked those drapes in my first term. I always like gold, but I think we can save a lot of money. I just saved curtains But, and it'll be spectacular. It'll be the most beautiful ballroom. I believe it's because I built many a ballroom. I believe it's going to be the most beautiful ballroom anywhere in the world.
On Capitol Hill, Secretary of State Marco Rubio joined top generals and intelligence officials in a classified briefing for select members of Congress Monday. After the closed-door briefing, Rubio told reporters the president had opted to join Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's planned war in Iran rather than trying to stop the Israeli assault or even to avoid getting involved.
Mm-hmm.
The president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties.
Meanwhile, MS Now is reporting that when FBI Director Kash Patel fired a dozen FBI personnel last week because they were part of the investigation into Donald Trump's mishandling of classified documents, Patel targeted an elite counter-espionage unit that investigates threats from foreign adversaries and specializes in Iran. The U.S. military may have used artificial intelligence tools made by tech company Anthropic to aid in its deadly air attack on Iran. The Wall Street Journal and
Great.
Axios reported the Trump administration's decision came despite Anthropic's announcement last week rejecting the use of its Claude AI model from being used for mass domestic surveillance or in fully autonomous weapons systems. The Journal reported U.S. military officials use the AI tools for intelligence purposes and to help select targets. On Friday, President Trump ordered all federal agencies to stop using Claude, denouncing Anthropic as a, quote, radical left AI company, unquote, after Anthropic refused to concede to a Pentagon ultimatum Friday for full access to its AI tools. On Capitol Hill, calls are growing for lawmakers to regulate online betting platforms known as prediction markets amidst allegations of insider trading that includes profiteering from U.S. military strikes. Bloomberg reports $529 million was traded on contracts tied to the timing of the strikes on the Polymarket prediction market. One Polymarket account called MAGA My Man made more than $500,000 betting on the U.S. attack on Iran, with the first trade placed just over an hour before the news broke publicly. This echoes similar bets on the U.S. military operation Venezuela placed on Polymarket and other prediction markets, including Kalshi. Donald Trump Jr. sits on Polymarket's advisory board, and his venture capital firm has invested tens of millions of dollars in the company. Both the Justice Department and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau ended active investigations into Polymarket after Trump returned to the White House last year. In Texas, voters are taking to the polls today for a closely watched Democratic primary between Congressmember Jasmine Crockett and State Representative James Tallarico, who are vying for a highly contested Senate seat in a heated midterm election that could determine which political party will control Congress during Trump's final 2 years in office. Incumbent Republican Senator John Cornyn, who served in the Senate for over 2 decades, is facing off against Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton in the GOP primary. Both are Trump supporters. Crockett is a progressive who staunchly denounced Trump's policies, while her opponent, Tallarico, has appealed to Republican voters and put his Christian faith at the center of his campaign. In Minnesota, the Justice Department's indicted another 30 people on federal crimes for participating in a peaceful protest in January at a St. Paul church where one of the pastors worked for ICE. Attorney General Pam Bondi confirmed over 24 people have been arrested. The new indictments come about a month after independent journalists Don Lemon and Georgia Fort and prominent civil rights activist and attorney Nekima Levy Armstrong were also charged for what the Attorney General called their roles in the protest at City's church. They were covering it. In related news, a federal judge has summoned Minnesota's U.S. Attorney Daniel Rosen and several ICE officials to appear in a St. Paul court today over violations in immigration cases. The officials are facing civil and criminal contempt charges for repeatedly ignoring court orders, including refusing to return belongings such as cell phones, cash, and passports to immigrants who are released from detention. This comes as a separate federal judge has ordered the Trump administration to bring back a wrongfully deported immigrant to the United States. Emilia Pena Jimenez was sent to Mexico despite 2 court orders mandating his release from detention in Minnesota. A court filing said Jimenez may have been denied access to a lawyer before being forced to sign removal documents that were not translated into Spanish. His case is among hundreds of complaints that have been filed in Minnesota courts. And prominent Iraqi human rights defender and feminist advocate Yanar Mohammed was killed in an armed attack on her home in Baghdad on Monday. Yanar had reportedly returned to Iraq from Canada a few days before her murder by 2 unidentified gunmen who opened fire as she stood outside her home. Yanar Mohammed was the co-founder and president of the Organization of Women's Freedom in Iraq. In 2003, she founded the first women's shelter in Iraq to protect women from trafficking and so-called honor killings, becoming the target of death threats over her activism. She was a frequent guest on Democracy Now! Following the 2003 U.S.-led invasion of Iraq. We spoke to her in 2022 when over 24 people were killed in Baghdad after armed supporters of the powerful Iraqi cleric Muqtada al-Sadr clashed with government forces.
And the strange thing is that those who started the demonstration that led to the clashes, to the killing, and to the bombing around the city, nobody dares to challenge them or to speak any bad word against them. It's as if I'm living the days of Saddam Hussein all over again, where everybody is scared of a single person and nobody dares to say anything. It's a terrible situation.
Yanar Mohammed was killed yesterday. To see all our interviews with her, go to democracynow.org. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York, joined by Juan Gonzalez in Chicago. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications.
He said around
to make sure
the
you
world,
never miss a
around
video.
the world.
And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.
I think I got it.
If truth can be one of the first casualties of war, this is a time, especially against an administration that has been caught lying a lot and uses propaganda, has been caught putting up false statements, videos, even at times misleading AI. We want to make sure we touch on that dynamic, the truth.
Let's touch on it, shall we?
Long history of lies and deceit, in addition to the other war
Why do we need
we're
to do
doing
that?
tonight. President Trump attacking Iran is the opposite of what he claimed he would do. And while some people might say, well, these images are, of course, war, and here we are, and let's move into it, the American public has a right to understand about why we are waging the opposite of what Donald Trump claimed his foreign policy would be in the most recent election where he was elected and promised no forever wars. His campaign promises were against exactly this kind of war of choice in a complex region.
He said no more forever wars, only wars that happen once in a while.
No president in the modern era has ordered more military strikes against as many different countries as Trump. That's in this term alone. Did you know that? Axios noting, as we get into this Iran war, that Trump authorized more individual airstrikes last year than Biden did in 4 years. I want to show you tonight, Trump has now bombed 7 countries in over a year. Iran, Nigeria, Venezuela, of course, where, like Iran, we were a part of an effort that removed the leader, Iraq, Somalia, Syria, and Yemen. I'm going to leave this up on the screen for a moment. What you are looking at is unilateral, unbridled, American war power under Donald Trump without the Congress. Whether any of these become his so-called forever wars is a matter of risk, something not in our control, because once you start taking out leaders and bombing different places, all sorts of things can happen. This is just in the beginning of the second term alone. The normally MAGA-friendly Wall Street Journal notes Trump spent years denouncing U.S. intervention. Now he's toppling foreign leaders.
I will tell you, you're not going to have a war with me, and you're not going to have a third world war with me. I will also restore peace through strength, and I will
he might be the first guy
prevent
that really gets
World War III from happening. These globalists want to squander all of America's strength, blood, and treasure.
Tallarico's beating Jasmine Crockett.
Overseas, our current strategy of nation building and regime change is a proven absolute failure. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars.
False. He is starting wars, risking wars, because there are some countries like Venezuela that are in a position where they may or may not fight back. And he said regime change is the goal. He just urged the Iranian people to rise up and change their regime this weekend. Americans are now dying in this war. There are some who might say, oh, it seems quaint to hold a politician or this politician to his words, but that is exactly what we do. And sooner or later in American
That's the whole
history,
idea.
we have seen even powerful, at one time popular presidents, and this one isn't, we've seen people in those positions have it all burn up over the exact thing Donald Trump is doing, thinking that because we have the power and we have the nukes, we can, quote, get away with anything. Indeed, George W. Bush and LBJ found that what started with wide support ended with a kind of ignominy in history for their war failures. It is early days. We are seeing some objections on the right.
It's bad. You know, it's really bad. I was promised that this would turn into a larger regional conflict. It's hard to believe it. It's hard to believe that at this point.
It's like, why do we do this? Like, why are we helping?
I'm not happy about the whole thing. I don't think this was in America's interest.
They showed Aiden Ross.
He was the No More Endless Wars candidate in 2016 and 2024, particularly, and this looks like an open betrayal of the base.
We're back with foreign policy veteran David Rothkopf. Your thoughts on this hypocrisy?
Well, you've summed it up right. It's not no more wars. It's more wars than anyone else. He has launched attacks on 7 different countries, 8 if you count the troops he's deployed in the United States. That's 8 more countries than he's actually solved wars in. He claims he's the peacemaker president, but he's clearly not. It's the opposite of that. And several of these wars are ongoing at the same time right now. He can't say he's against endless wars because from day one, practically, of entering this administration, he has been fighting wars. This administration thus far has been an endless war. And of course, it's alienating his base. But I would say to the base, stand by, because, you know, for all the reasons that were described by your previous guests in the show, this is an incoherent war undertaken not by choice, but by impulse. And we don't know what's going to happen next. What if the war means prices are going to go up? What if the war means markets will be unstable? What if the war triggers terrorism around the world? What if the war means troops on the ground? What if the war means alienating more of our allies? There are a lot of ways that what we've seen in the past couple of days and throughout the past year could turn real bad for average Americans. And so that's when, you know, the anger or the brewing discontent that you talked about gets turned up a lot of notches. And of course, it's an election year.
How does the U.S. factor this in? Because you want to have maximum runway and leverage without a congressional authorization and public approval. That becomes a real world problem, even if Trump would like to wish it away as an autocrat. There are those today speaking out calling this, quote, disgusting and evil. That's not a AOC. That's a quote from longtime Fox host Tucker Carlson.
Well, it's not often that I come on your show and agree with Tucker Carlson. But, you know, it is disgusting and it is evil and indeed it's illegal. It's contrary to the Constitution. there was no imminent threat. It's contrary to the interests of the American people. It's contrary to the interests of our allies. There are already hundreds of civilians who are dead. Many of our friends in the region are hunkering down and in trouble. It is clearly a war that was fought in defense not of the United States, but perhaps of Bibi Netanyahu. And as far as disgusting goes, look, you know the movie Wag the Dog from 1997, a movie that talks about, a fictional president choosing to have a war to distract from domestic problems. I think a lot of people think, and I think for good reason, that Trump is trying to change the subject with this war away from Epstein, away from plummeting poll ratings.
Okay,
and,
sure.
Changing the subject is one thing. Changing the subject by upsetting the entire Middle East, putting world peace at risk, putting hundreds of lives at risk. We're already, I believe 6 members of our military are already dead as a consequence. That is disgusting.
Okay, sure. Bunch of libs yapping about how disgusting it is and not doing anything about it. Typical. Fucking Bitcoin is halved.
Thank you, Mr.
Guys.
Chairman. Secretary Noem, as Secretary of Homeland Security,
Since
you oversaw
August of 25, it's
Operation
halved.
Metro Search. Is that correct?
Yes, as Secretary, I oversee ICE and CBP and HSI officers that were there doing their work.
3,000 ICE agents, Border Control to Minnesota, outnumbering our 10 Metro Police departments, outnumbering by 3 to 1 the number of sworn police officers in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Is that correct?
Yeah. We were working to do targeted operations against
if you
criminal,
could answer yes
illegal
or no.
aliens, and we needed to do that in a safe manner to make sure that we could ensure the safety of our law enforcement officers.
2 of my constituents, Renee Good and Alex Preddy, were killed. They should be alive today. In fact, in 1 month in the city of Minneapolis, when you look at the 3 fatalities that were results of shooting, 2 of 3 were committed by federal agents. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am.
So your agents, not only their actions resulted in the deaths of 2 innocent American citizens, but they repeatedly violated my constituents' First Amendment rights to assemble. You say you believe in the Second Amendment right to bear arms, but Alex Preddy was criticized repeatedly by officials in the administration for having a lawful permit to carry and having a gun. Your agents violated the Fourth Amendment rights of my constituents by ramming through doors of innocent people's homes, innocent citizens' home, without any kind of a warrant, and violated the Fifth Amendment right to due process. So as I've shared with my colleagues, if you believe in federalism, in freedom, and in liberty, you should be horrified by what the Department of Homeland Security did in Minnesota. So my first question is, having spoken to Mr. Homan, what is the exact number of DHS agents still in Minnesota?
Well, I believe that there is still close to 650 there, counting the investigators that are there working.
As reported on the ground by my on-the-ground reporter from Minnesota. So those 600 people are all now, apparently, according to the on-the-ground reporter, they're undercover.
To get to the bottom of the unprecedented fraud that has been found in the Medicaid
Was
funding.
5-year-old Liam involved in that fraud? As you know, I am all in on prosecuting fraud. I put in place the U.S. attorney who exposed the fraud under the Biden administration and brought the bulk of the prosecutions, and also recommended to Mr. Blanche that Joe Thompson be the acting U.S. attorney who led those prosecutions and now has left the office because the Department of Justice asked him and many others to investigate Renee Good's wife instead of doing their jobs doing fraud. So what I want to know is, when are you going to get down to the original footprint as promised to us?
We're continuing to work at that, although those investigators will continue to stay there to get to the bottom of that fraud, to make sure that those vulnerable people that rely on those programs actually get services from those federal dollars that are spent. That it's not stolen by criminals and used by individuals to enrich themselves and send it out of the country.
Secretary. Shangli Tao, are you aware that agents bashed in the door of a U.S. citizen, a Hmong elder with no criminal record?
I can't speak to the specifics of that case.
Did you see the photos of that man being dragged out of his house in Crocs and in his underwear?
Yes, I did.
Do you believe that he was involved in fraud?
I do not know where that status of that investigation is.
Are you aware that he is a son of a beloved nurse that treated our soldiers in Vietnam?
I believe that we have laws in this country that need to be enforced and need to be applied equally to everyone.
Speaking of enforcing the laws and following the laws, did they have a judicial warrant when they rammed through an American citizen's door?
Our law enforcement officers follow the same protocols and procedures that all law enforcement do.
Are you aware that he tried to show his identification to show that he was American citizen and they didn't want to see it?
She's aware of all that, you guys.
Again, these officers conduct themselves in processes. If something was done inaccurately, then certainly we will make sure that we correct it and rectify it in the future.
They conduct themselves in processes. Wow. Put on some more shoulder pads, shorty.
Aware that the person they were looking for was in prison and had been in prison for years?
Yes, I am. That's a target. Yes, we do targeted operations going after and looking for.
Do you agree that it is unacceptable for your agents to ram into someone's door and drag someone out in their underwear and below zero temperatures when they have the wrong guy?
Our officers conduct targeted operations and utilize the law processes that are given to them and the tools.
You will not answer that you think that's wrong.
They needed to identify that individual, and
they couldn't identify him by looking at his identification. Instead, they had to drag him out, throw him in a car, and drive him around for an hour. How about pulling off-duty police officers, Madam Secretary, every single one of whom made clear who they were? They were people of color, off-duty police officers. In Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, the chief described how one off-duty officer, someone of color, a U.S. citizen, was stopped and confronted by ICE agents with their guns drawn, demanding her proof of citizenship. As Chief Bruley said, I wish I could tell you that this was an isolated incident, but the other chief said it had happened to their own officers. Why were these officers stopped?
We have thousands of law enforcement operations that we do every single day.
Do you think they were stopped because they were people of color? Were they racially
and drug
profiled?
Traffickers off our streets. When I look at these American families that have been victimized by criminals that we have removed from cities and from communities, I'm grateful for the work that our ICE officers do. And by your only focusing,
are you defending stopping
I would like to hear you talk about some of the operations that we've done
dragging a
to
Hmong
bring
elder
people
out of
to
his
justice?
home?
When you only talk about these situations like this that we are conducting, and you don't talk about the good work that they do to protect people from being victimized by people that are in this country that want to conduct violent crimes against them or take advantage of them. The laws need to apply to everyone, and we're out there enforcing the law.
I am a former prosecutor,
Context is
Ms. Noem,
incredibly important.
I have always
in every
worked
situation.
with our police well, but that's not what was going. These ICE agents were not following police procedures. After the killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, when I spoke to Alex's parents, they told me that you calling him a domestic terrorist, this was directly from them, the day after he was killed, a nurse in our VA, Alex, one of the most hurtful things they could ever imagine was said by you about their son. Do you have anything you want to say to Alex Preddy's parents?
We were relying in the hours after that incident that was so horrific on information we were getting from the ground from our agents.
I just asked if you had anything you wanted to say to the parents or to the family of Renee Good after you called them domestic terrorists.
I can't even imagine what they have gone through in the loss of their son and the loss of their family members.
But how about specifically calling them domestic terrorists without any evidence of that?
Sir, ma'am, I did not call him a domestic terrorist. I said it appeared to be an incident of.
I think the parents saw it for what it was. After the killings, the federal government refused to cooperate with state law enforcement. Agents blocked Minnesota investigators from accessing the scene. I know because I got directly calls from the mayor. I tried to call the DOJ. I tried to do everything I could because they were very worried about what was going to happen immediately, especially after Alex Preddy's death. Do you think that blocking local law enforcement from the scene of a shooting makes people safer? Yes or no?
Actually, our HSI law enforcement officers risked their lives on that scene, preserving evidence and keeping the violent rioters away from the evidence so it could be preserved for the investigation.
What life was lost at that scene, Secretary? No.
Huh? Yes, I understand that.
Alex Preddy's life
and
that was
after
lost.
It became very.
I believe it is in the interest of justice to have a full and transparent investigation.
Yes, the investigation's being led by FBI and internal investigations as well into this incident.
Will you commit to reversing the decision to cooperate with the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, an agency of seasoned professionals that the agents worked with directly, FBI agents worked with directly to investigate after the shooting assassination of Speaker Hortman, after the killing of those 2 little kids in that church with the bullets going through those stained glass windows? In both incidents, our federal and local law enforcement worked together and are working together in those investigations. But they have been blocked, the locals have, from being part of this. Why is that, Ms. No?
The FBI is leading this investigation, and I would leave that question for them to answer.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, Israel is now facing a 2-front war with missile and rocket attacks from Iran, as well as Hezbollah in Lebanon. For the latest on the ground, we go to our chief foreign correspondent, Trey Yinks, who is live in Tel Aviv. Trey.
Hey guys, good morning. I do want to start with some breaking news. A senior Israeli official telling Fox News that more than 1,000 enemy combatants have been killed in Iran since the operation began. This is based on their latest battle damage assessment. As we continue to track developments here, we are looking to Israel's northern border with Lebanon, where overnight the Israelis sent forces into southern Lebanon to take what Israeli officials are calling a defensive posture against the Iran-backed terror group Hezbollah. This posture is expected to remain over concerns about cross-border attacks. Overnight, more rockets were fired into northern Israel from Lebanon, and the Israelis striking back, hitting more targets in the Lebanese capital of Beirut, specifically around the Dakhya neighborhood, a Hezbollah stronghold. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking with Sean Hannity overnight saying this.
With these ballistic missiles, these weapons of mass death, these weapons of terror, they're terror weapons. They bombed all these countries. And when they develop the intercontinental ballistic missiles, they'll threaten you and eventually they'll bomb you. This is what President Trump understood. And alone among U.S. presidents that I've worked with, he took action. And we're all very, very lucky that he did.
Israel's prime minister making clear that this Iranian threat, it's all connected across the region, whether it's their proxies, their ballistic missile program, or their attempts to rebuild their nuclear program. And overnight, the Iranians launching more attacks toward the Gulf, targeting the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, with 2 drones. The embassy was vacant at the time. There were no injuries reported. We're also following developments out of Kuwait, where smoke was seen rising as these attacks against Gulf countries continue. Now, Vice President J.D. Vance tried to lay out a timeline overnight, describing new details about the plans of the Trump administration. Take a listen.
There's just no way that Donald Trump is going to allow this country to get into a multi-year conflict with no clear end in sight and no clear objective. He's defined that objective as Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon and has to commit long-term to never trying to rebuild their nuclear capability.
Intense days of battle are expected ahead. The Israelis are still going after Iran's ballistic missile launching positions, but this morning sirens have sounded across this country multiple times amid new incoming fire. Guys?
So, Trey, based on your source, and I know the American government is trying to figure this out as well, but who is running the operation in Iran right now? Do we know? I know there was, they had 4 guys out. In case of this happened, have you heard anything?
It's a great question, and the short answer is we don't know. There are very few senior leaders still alive in Iran. More than 40 were taken out, including Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei. President Masoud Pezeshkian is still alive. There is a top a Security Council official named Ali Larijani, who has quite a bit of power inside of Iran. But the leadership structure has been basically dismantled, along with many IRGC positions. There is close coordination between the United States and Israel to not only go after the launching positions and the command and control centers, but also try to degrade as much of the leadership as possible.
So the Gulf states are under fire. And so far, I understand Bahrain says they've intercepted 70 missiles. Qatar is down 2 Iranian jets. They've had maybe over 100. The UAE has been hit pretty hard. Detected 174 ballistic missiles, destroying 161. 13 fell into the sea. Do you think it's caught them by surprise that they're under persistent attack? And do you think the number of interceptors they have in their arsenal will begin to become an issue?
I don't think they were caught by surprise, but this was largely seen as an outlier in possible responses from Iran. It's been seen by many analysts as a miscalculation by the Iranian regime to go directly after these Gulf states, because it's only strengthening their defense and their resolve to stay together and actually help the Americans and the Israelis with this operation against Iran. And we talked about this yesterday, but it's a very important point to underscore. President Trump has been able to do something across the Middle East that wasn't done before. He's built trust between these Gulf countries and regional allies of the United States, including Israel. And despite the fact we've seen public statements in the lead up to this conflict, all of these countries understand the threat against the Iranian regime. They heard President Trump lay out his vision for peace across the Middle East, and he was able to, through his special envoy Steve Witkoff and his son-in-law Jared Kushner, not only deliver the message of who the #1 threat in the region really is, but also ensure that these countries are working together, because they see the Iranian regime as the last hurdle to peace in the Middle East, to stability, the regional stability that President Trump has said is possible. And that is why this operation is unfolding right now. There were diplomatic opportunities given to the Iranians. The Trump administration extended an olive branch at the negotiating table, both in Oman and in Switzerland. And the Iranians were unwilling to make a good faith nuclear agreement. And they were continuing to expand their ballistic missile program and support of regional proxies, not to mention the massive crackdown on protesters earlier this year that led to the deaths of more than 32,000 civilians in their own country. And so these are the reasons that this operation began. But the fact that these Gulf countries are under fire, it's an indication that the Iranians are really in a desperate place, given the fact they were hit so hard in that opening strike campaign that was coordinated between both the United States and Israel.
Yeah, I thought the same thing when you're talking about the other Gulf states. The best way to make sure they're not going to help you is to attack them. So might not have been the best move on Iran's part. Is anyone else helping Iran? Is China helping Iran? Any other countries?
They're not. Right now, they are isolated. Of course, in the past, they've received air defense systems and weapons from the Russians and the Chinese. But at this point, they're incredibly isolated, and that will only get worse for the Iranian regime. And it's interesting to watch these leaders who are still alive among the top political echelon inside of Iran still threatening the United States. It's as if they didn't receive the message, despite the fact that their entire political and military leadership was decapitated. And so they're not receiving outside support right now. And the Iranian regime in the days ahead will continue to weaken as the United States into Israel launches these strikes across the country.
Hey, Trey, real quick on the Hezbollah-Lebanon-Israel dynamic. Israel's calling on Lebanon to crack down on Hezbollah, else we're gonna finish them off. We're gonna get in there, and it's gonna get really worse for everybody. Does Lebanon have a strong enough government to actually crack down on a weakened Hezbollah, which we hear is now being run by the IRGC?
They do, and this is a massive achievement for the Trump administration. The fact that yesterday you had Lebanon's prime minister calling on Hezbollah to stand down, that's unheard of. If we reported that a year ago, people would have laughed. But they have sent Tom Barak and others to the region to say, look, there's only one future for Lebanon, and that is a future that does not involve Iranian proxies. It doesn't involve threats against Israel and U.S. forces in the region. And so there is a change in tone from Lebanese leadership after all of these efforts from the administration, and they're going to help in trying to ensure that Hezbollah isn't attacking Israel or U.S. forces in the region. And already we understand they are trying to implement the framework of that ceasefire that was reached last year in order to dissuade Hezbollah from getting more directly involved in the fight. While this is taking place, you have a parallel track that now includes Israeli forces in southern Lebanon over the border, and they are hammering the Lebanese capital of Beirut with air.
This is crazy. Looks like they're losing, chat.
Strikes.
All right, Trey, thanks so much for the reporting.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley
Gosh,
Earhart.
darn
And
it.
click here.
This selling of this war is so ham-fisted, so poorly done, so weak relative to what the buildup to Iraq.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah. Uncle Sam here will tell us. It's like they're not even bothering with any sort of like manufactured consent for this. They don't care about the consent. They're just doing it. He's like, whatever, doesn't matter. They're just acting out what they actually are. You know, the imperial warmongers that they are. That's why I said the neocons won.
And
Neocons got the bag.
This is clip
man.
number 4. There was a time, like in the build
who'd have thunk that MAGA would have handed the neocons the bag? We always thought it was going to be Bush. You know, he's going to win the war in Iraq. Neocons would be like, yeah, Dick Cheney. Old tricky Dick. Too bad he's not alive.
to the war on Iraq.
Oh, Dick is old Dicky Tricky Dick. I'll bet you he's rolling in his grave right now, chat. Because this is like he's like happy rolling.
Invasion, the
whatever the opposite of that is,
the bombing, shock
right?
and awe. The idea that you would say we should not be bombing Iraq, we should not invade Iraq. If there are weapons of mass destruction there, let the weapons inspectors do their jobs. Don't pull them out so that we can bomb the place. Let
All
them
the
do
libs
their
said
job.
that back in the day.
You were told by
To shut the fuck up.
a range of people from Andrew Sullivan. Can't remember if Iglesias actually did it,
Iglesias,
but,
yeah. He
Thomas
probably would have,
Friedman,
yeah, Friedman.
And then all the way to the right, that you were a Saddam lover.
Yep.
And the idea that you could hold
It's
the
like, you must love Saddam then.
idea that Saddam Hussein is a bad person, a bad dictator, bad for the country, Iraq, but that we should not be blowing up this country was impossible to hold that.
Yeah, kids, let's bomb a country under the guise of saving the women, Iran, and bomb their children and kill them. Sure, that's saving the women in Iran from the oppressive regime of fucking Iran, the mullahs. Oh, yeah, it's really going to really help. That's doing such a good job.
They're trying to do that again, but they are not sending their best.
No.
These propagandists are the B
They're not
and C
sending
team.
their best,
Here
folks.
is
That's right.
Senator Sheehy from, where is he even from? Is he from Montana? What, Montana. Right? I mean, if they got the guy from Montana coming out to do this, they can't find anybody else who's willing to do it.
Markwayne
Iran's
Mullin.
#1 target.
Mullin was like,
It's
all right,
over.
48 hours of being the senator selling this on cable news. I am out. So we need this guy.
Get some other yokel up there.
So they send this yokel local up there, and here
The
he
yokel
is
local.
trying to claim that anybody against the bombing of Iran at behest of Israel, and then Trump says, no, Israel did it at the behest of me, is an Ayatollah lover.
Yeah, no one is saying Iran has been doing good things.
What?
I mean, the Iranian leadership. But
Well,
if
there's actually
this
quite a
is
few
about
Democrats and folks who are defending the Ayatollah's right to continue to rule and defending his existence. So I think
who is
in fairness,
defending the Ayatollah?
Well, let's see.
Who?
We've
AOC,
had
really?
Elizabeth Warren's former campaign manager out there, literally chanting "Death to America" on stage yesterday.
I don't know who that is, but Elizabeth Warren is not.
Elizabeth Warren's former campaign manager.
Lies.
Chanting
You're
death
right,
to
Chatter.
America. They've got us dead to rights. And I'm very skeptical of that claim.
I love how Collins goes, I don't know who that is.
How about when America's doing evil stuff? I don't give a fuck. I don't give a single shit that people are saying death to America anywhere in the world when America's being Hitler.
Well,
Yeah, like, for sure. Like, you can say death to America. It doesn't matter. Like,
yes, I get you.
I just want to know
get you.
so I can
but
go to that
we're
rally.
talking about the Republican propaganda project. And when they're out there within 24 hours of this bombing, and the best they can do is talk about Elizabeth Warren's former campaign manager. We don't know from which campaign, incidentally.
Right, and she could, and who knows? Elizabeth Warren could be orchestrating this all together. I mean, she's basically the Ayatollah sleeper cell here in the United States.
It's just they are not prepared for this, even with the rule. I mean, understand.
Yes.
The mainstream corporate media loves a war. They cannot help themselves.
Yeah, CNN is eating good. They're having good lunches on CNN right now because they got lots to talk about, lots of war,
and they want to be able to echo this stuff, but they you have to give them something. Collins is like, I don't know who that is. So it's it's a little bit difficult. There was a guy on YouTube I saw who said this. I mean, that's what the level we're at here. I go back a little bit and just watch how lame
we're good.
Their propaganda is.
Did he not think that he was going to be asked
well,
a
I'm on
follow-up
YouTube
question
now,
about
but no
this?
one watches me on there. So it doesn't matter.
The Iranian leadership. But
Well,
if
there's actually
this
quite
is
a
about
few Democrats and folks who are defending the Ayatollah's right to continue to rule and defending
farm clips.
His existence. So I think
who is
in fairness,
defending the Ayatollah?
well, let's see. We've had Elizabeth Warren's former campaign manager out there literally chanting "Death to America" on stage yesterday.
I don't know who that is, but Elizabeth Warren is not defending the Ayatollah. But the reason I
We've got
ask
Ilhan
you,
Omar and Rashida Tlaib who are saying that this is the New York Times publishing an obituary describing me as an avuncular cleric.
I think that was the Washington Post, but again, that's not a lawmaker, that's not a Democrat who is saying that this is what they did. But the reason I ask why this is happening is because we hear a bunch of different reasons from the administration. It doesn't seem like there's anyone settled on one reason. I mean, you just said regime change. Secretary Hegg said this morning it's not a regime change war.
I think the reason you're hearing so many varied reasons is the varied threats this regime presents.
No one is
nice
saying
try.
Iran has been...
Nice try. Scroll down to the next one because there's another clip. This clip right there. No. Go down. That one right there. Yeah.
It's an image.
Oh wait. There's another clip in what I sent.
Okay.
Where he had said something completely different a couple of months ago.
Dave Weigel looked into this. He said, I checked with old Warren staff to figure out who he could be talking about. And
what
the
a
consensus
loser.
is that he must think Calla Walsh, who worked for Markey, not Warren, and was her campaign manager. So he didn't even get that right.
Well, I'm on
Couldn't
her
get any of it
Wikipedia.
right.
She volunteered for the campaign. She was not a campaign manager for Liz.
Yeah, that's
Campaign volunteer.
Yeah, I can't.
that's
This guy's the worst candidate ever. He's got nothing.
absurd.
Yes, I mean, but this is the thing: is that this is what clearly Democratic leadership believes, and it just spills out in those certain
Now,
circumstances.
wait a second. I just put this in there. That same guy was on CNN in June of 2025. Now, this is a long time ago. It's almost over 8 months ago.
Well, Sam has the clips.
6, 7, 8, 6, 7, somewhere around there. And here is that same guy explaining to you something radical has changed in the past 6 months, apparently.
Do you support regime change in Iran?
Regime change can only come from one place. That's the people of Iran. They have to make that decision. We've learned that the hard way in Iraq and Afghanistan. I was part of both those wars, where we chose to change
He's a
regimes.
veteran.
And guess what? We ended up there in a long time in a war we didn't understand, fighting for something that not all Americans agreed with. So regime change comes from one
That's guy, Senator Tim Sheehy. Some would say he's a terrible person.
place. That's the people of Iran making the decision to decide if they want to continue to live under the yoke of a murderous regime or if they want to overthrow that regime and return to the relative prosperity and freedom that Iran once enjoyed.
So you think the president should rule out regime change in Iran?
Regime change is not our decision. It's not.
Well, I mean, the
America's
president was
choice.
saying today that they could take him out, that he's safer now bit. I mean, he had that caveat there that obviously is not.
You know, the president likes to negotiate. The president likes to know that all the weapons are on the table in a negotiation. So, you know, frankly, I think he's handling this perfectly. I think he's making it clear, like he has in most of his other negotiations, that anything is on the table. But I think he's also been very clear that he doesn't want to be opening up new fronts of war anywhere, but especially in the Middle East, where we've been, frankly, fighting nonstop for almost half.
Is a strike up?
Hey, what happened? Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere. Nope, no weapons over there. Maybe under here.
Yeah. The problem too with this Trump giving like the timeline about how long this is going to take means that the people of Iran that they're saying need to rise up and like cement this regime change are going to need a little bit more time than that. The idea that there's a stop or there's a like an expiration date, even if in like if we're taking their stated objectives at face value, it means that you're creating like a time limit for this supposed takeover that just puts the protesters in Iran in harm's way.
Because it's not real, chat. It's not a real objective, and they know it's not achievable, and it's not what they want. It's a way to distract you from what they're really doing.
The idea that I would be an Iranian dissident and I would rely on and trust Trump or Netanyahu to do anything to help me, I think is very, very hard to believe.
There's a significant amount of Kurds in Iran who may have learned that lesson.
They may have. And I think, you know, the point...
They're both wrong. The Kurds are going to attack. So I heard. The Kurds are going to, like, arm up and crawl out of their holes or something like Trump said.
It's just that they
it was Rubio.
To
it was Rubio.
maximize the chaos so that it's
Rubio
very difficult for Iran and to fund Hezbollah, to even, you know, fund Hamas or fund any opposition to Israel. And they see this as like a short time frame where they can do that.
I think this is more about the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf. I mean, I think this is about making sure that there is no one. There's unfettered threat to shipping through there, and
oil.
that the U.S. can have control of that. To the extent that, like,
that's the
there
we're
are
gaining.
People who even have enough
Not
mental
you and me.
capacity to come up with a ridiculous sort of desire.
And Trump just wants the oil. He's going to like sell it like he's selling the Venezuelan oil too, chat. Don't get it twisted.
Or theory. I think Trump, honestly, this is literally like there was more involved when I was playing with army men as a 7-year-old in establishing. I really do think that his brain is just completely mush.
Speaking of mush brains, Jared Moskowitz, quote, they should just rename it. This is before the strike last week. They should just rename it the Ayatollah Protection Act because that's what it does. Speaking of the War Powers Resolution, that's the Dems are going to be voted on.
What the fuck?
So it is there's some bipartisan support for this sort of you support the terrorist blackmail.
Is he that guy from Florida?
Yep.
Oliver Larkin is
Oliver
running?
Larkin. We had him on Left Reckoning. We should get him on this show. Florida's 23rd, I believe.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out...
show. That's the
all right,
best
y'all.
show.
This to me is...
Everyone like and subscribe to the Majority Report.
kind of a big deal, but Marjorie
Uncle Sam's
Taylor
been
Greene,
doing it longer than I've been alive. He's funny too. So a lot of what you see me do on my channel, I probably got from him, not gonna lie.
used to be ultra MAGA and used to be a huge supporter of Trump. And of course, her and Trump got into it over the Epstein files, and she basically resigned from Congress instead of staying and fighting. I disagree with that.
I agree.
But, you know, she's still being vocal about how, you know, this is
Kyle.
kind of fucking crazy what's going
How you
on
gonna
in
run
this
this?
country now. So this is quite a mission. Shannon Joy says the following. Trump doesn't seem to care about the midterms. Who wants to bet he'll declare a national emergency because of Iran or some other manufactured crisis and try to cancel the elections in November? She says that by quote tweeting the Daily Mail, and the Daily Mail points out that Tucker Carlson said the attack on Iran is disgusting and evil. Okay? So pointing out, look, he's acting like public opinion doesn't matter, perhaps because he actually feels like public opinion doesn't matter because I'm going to steal the election.
And then Marjorie Taylor Greene is like, yay, I could say it. It's insane.
Anyway, Marjorie Taylor Greene chimes in and says, yeah, I could see it. Insane. So now you finally have an admission from somebody who used to be inside the House, part of MAGA, one of their biggest supporters, okay, who now is being honest and says, yeah, I could see him do that, of course. Yeah.
She stepped out.
Well, this
She
is exactly
stepped
what
out
we've
of
been
the
warning about
ring.
every step of the way. First of all, the best predictor of future action is past action. He tried to steal the election in 2020.
Folks, she's no longer in the cult, and she's in her own little cult now. But at least she's like, I mean, she's not good. Don't get it twisted.
Already tried to steal it in 2020. There are legitimate questions about what the fuck went down in 2020.
It's not like I had a transformation. She didn't have a transformation like in what she was doing. She's a grifter, right? Like she grifted Congress, you know, like by threading that needle.
But we're not going to talk about that now. We won't get into that now. You can go watch our interview with Greg Palast if you want more on that. Okay.
True.
But how many times he's broadcasted a number of times? He said to the New York Times, if you really think about it, we shouldn't even have an election. We shouldn't even have an election anymore.
Who cares about the election? No one cares. No one votes anyway. I'm better.
Think about
I'm
it.
sorry. I'm better.
He's made jokes about
I'm
that
better.
on the campaign trail. You vote for me one more time, nobody's ever going to have to vote again. You won't have to vote again. He
Wrong.
keeps dropping these hints. He keeps saying these things. He posted an
said
article
more than
immediately
that,
after
bro.
attacking Iran, saying,
So Kyle Kulinski is kind of like a liberal that's kind of come to the left a little more. He's started to understand the problems with the Democratic Party over the last 5 years, and he's come more onto the left side. He's starting to learn, but he's still catching up on some of this. Like
Iran interfered in the
Kyle.
2020 election, and we need to remember that moving forward. He talked about Zelensky and said, "Oh, wait, you get to not have an election if you're at war?" Huh? You had a light bulb moment, like.
Yeah. Oopsie. Yeah, that's the thing is Trump sees something and then he gets it stuck in his little mush brain. He's like, okay. Like he saw gold palaces in Saudi Arabia or something. He's like, I gotta make that in the White House someday. And Melania's like, yeah, let's do it. Oh, she doesn't speak like that, but you know. Since Melania never speaks and he's always speaking for her, I might as well use his voice.
And I try that shit too. Now, that's not how it works in this country, but he thinks, yeah, I could fucking do it, right? I can fucking do it.
Of course he does.
If
Oh,
Zelensky can get away
damn.
with it, I can get away with it. I'm a
Kyle, you're looking tan, bro.
try to do this shit. Never mind all of his executive orders. Never mind the fact it looks like he wants to send the National Guard or send ICE when the vote.
Look, do not get it twisted. He already did many tests. Sending the National Guard in, sending ICE in. Those were tests. He doesn't want to lose.
Are counted on election day. As soon as
agree.
they it flips to being more pro-Democrat, he wants to send it in and declare fraud. Send in ICE.
And not only that, he still to this day keeps talking about how he lost. And it was wrong. So, no.
Seize the voting machines. Like, this is what he wants to do. Seize the ballots. He already did the Fulton County, Georgia shit where he went there and seized the 2020 ballots. He's trying to get Maduro right now to say, oh yeah, I helped steal the 2020 election for Joe Biden. This is what he's working on.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a
people need to
known
wake
fact,
up.
by
They
the
need
way.
to wake up. He's going to try to steal the midterms. He's going to do it. That's why they're trying to pass.
That guy Maduro, I got him. He messed with the elections, and that's why I lost. I got him to say it. The CIA beat him up just a little bit. It was a little tough. A little tough on him. I don't think he'll be speaking anymore.
Pass the SAVE Act. He's trying to ban like all mail-in voting. He literally has like 6 or 7 different schemes that he's cooked up to try to steal the midterms, and it's all happening at the same.
Yeah, and he's gonna try. Like we watched Lisa Miller a couple days ago on this channel. He's gonna try all of those things so that he's gonna throw all of it against the wall and hope it all sticks, or at least a couple of them stick. Because if a couple of them stick, then he's good. You see what I mean? He's overcompensating with all these weird things in different areas, which of course he has to because it's all kind of different everywhere, right? Yeah, he's right. I'm going to say, no matter who wins or loses in 26, this year, whoever wins or loses in November is if everything goes well, that's all we could hope for at this point, in my opinion.
Time that this country
It appears to
is
go well.
fucking furious with Trump and Trumpism and what he's doing. He was at 38% before he did an illegal and offensive war against Iran, killed multiple U.S. service members, killed innocent girls in an Iranian school.
Bro's heading towards a 20% rating right now.
Destroyed the economy, led to spiking
Worse
gas
than the
prices.
A7 channel.
Before all that, he was at a 38% approval rating, okay? This is insane. This is
I'm working
insane.
on my
But now you know from
87%
somebody
approval rating,
who was
but it's
inside
not,
the
I'm not
movement.
quite there
Yeah, of
yet.
course. By the way, they know. You think they actually believe it when they talk about, oh, the Democrats tried to steal 2020. And no, they know it's bullshit. They know it's bullshit. We've had over 60 lawsuits.
Exactly.
They lost virtually every single
Like
one
Kyle
of those
said,
shits.
they tried
They did
to
the
say
audit in Arizona
yeah.
because they were so convinced.
Yeah, they tried to say that he lost here and there in Arizona. They tried all these lawsuits, and every single one's been thrown out.
Trump won Arizona. Well, when they did the audit, not only did Biden win, he won by more than what we thought he won by on election day. So, yes,
So it got worse
the results
for
were a
him.
little different, but it was more pro-Biden than what it was before. We've been through this 1,000.
And then even none of those incidences that they were claiming were voter fraud or whatever their claims were, because there were so many of them, had anything to do with making the election change that much. And it was never his, I need those 11,000 votes. He never got that, okay?
Times. Mike Lindell's a fucking crackpot. Sidney Powell's a fucking crackpot. All these people are liars and scumbags and idiots, okay? So it's just crazy to me.
I'm glad
now you
you
have an
realize that
admission,
now,
and
Kyle.
I need Democrats to wake up. I need Democrats to counter this.
Yeah.
Democracy Docket's doing a great job.
Yeah, you need him to see your, yeah, you're right. This is actually good because this guy has credibility. You know, he has like, reason I watch him, he's got 2.16, actually he's gotten a lot of subscribers. 2.16 million subscribers. And him and his wife do some good reporting. I respect both of them.
By Mark Elias. He's doing a great job holding Republicans accountable, taking them to court, fighting back against these rigging attempts. But just understand, it's all hands on deck, bro. Because I can see this is going to go sideways. In many ways, even though times right now are tumultuous, in some ways it's the calm before the storm because he's going to try to steal the fucking election. He's going to try to steal it, dog.
Everyone's telling me this, bro.
So just, oh
we
my
know.
God. Don't take it from me. Take it from Marjorie Taylor Greene. Nobody knows Trump like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene was told by Trump, hey, stop trying to release the Epstein files. It's going to hurt my friends. Oh, is it? Is it going to hurt your friends? Fucking pedophile, rapist, billionaires? Is it going to hurt them? Good. That's the fucking point. We hope it hurts them, and we hope it hurts fucking you. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable.
Right?
But people are waking up. They're waking up, and they see this for what it is. And this country is currently being held together by Scotch tape and fucking
fascism,
glue, Elmer's glue, and Band-Aids, and...
Okay, dude. Nice try.
I'm not a medical doctor, but what I'm seeing from...
Nice try. I can be funnier on the fly. Okay, chat. Well, hedonism, yeah, you know, lies are all lies. I always talk about that. There's always a lie included. There's always a truth included too, but the most of the time it's just lies. Not from these two ladies, though. They like the truth.
Trump doesn't look good. We have cankles that are, you know, as big as a linebacker's thigh,
They
an
both
NFL
don't like Trump.
linebacker's thigh. We've got all sorts of bruises and caked on makeup on top of the hand.
Basically, anyone that is like on the Trump train right now and still doesn't understand that he fooled you, okay, if you voted for him, period. And that's fine. And I can explain why. Like, there's a reason why. There's many reasons why. And some of them are good because it means some of y'all are like, you know, redeemable, but not the racist ones.
And now
So,
we have this weird...
I mean, just understand. This is crazy. We're going to have this like oligarchy here where the top 5 billionaires own all of the media, which they already do at this point. Okay. Including Twitch, what I'm broadcasting on right now. Potentially they could clap down on someone like me if they wanted to. Restrict my voice. They aren't going to do that, but you know, if I had clout. And then the president's just going to like have elections that are 90% for him. And it may not be Trump. It's going to be whoever the 4 rich billionaires decide to put in, like they did with Trump.
Chlamydia outbreak or something on his neck. Pop this up.
Ooh.
As you can see here, this doesn't look good. It looks to me like he has some sort of skin disorder.
That's bad.
And it's all crusty.
Oh,
and
that's gotta hurt, bro.
It looks like he's just falling apart at the seams. And as we know from a previous episode I showed you, he's been sending Melania out to the UN. He's not doing as many public press conferences.
No, he doesn't have as much
This
energy
dementia
either.
duck is not in good health, and he's too easy to manipulate.
I mean, we got to
he
worry
was
more
able to
about
have
Stephen
a
Miller at this point.
Psychological psycho killer,
You know?
Benjamin Netanyahu, come over here on February 11th and dog walk him right into a war with Iran, which no other American president was stupid or weak enough to do. But the chum is in the water with Donald Trump. Vladimir Putin's able to dog walk him. Benjamin Netanyahu especially is able to dog walk him. And I happen to think, Pumps, that Benjamin Netanyahu
got what he wanted.
Have
the NEOCONS got what they wanted
on Donald Trump from those Epstein files. Now, before, when we would hear about Pizzagate and all
20
this,
years
I thought,
they
God,
wanted
no, this
this.
is
30
crazy
years.
conspiracy theory. But as the Epstein files have come out, the conspiracies were true. I mean, the only thing was they had the Comet Pizza and all that pizza stuff was bullshit, but the elite cabal of pedophiles was 100% true. This president's in them over 1 million times. Credible deduction that Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad agent and or working on behalf of Israel, and 100%. Had a lot of compromising information on Donald Trump.
You know, I think when you...
Yes, and he made Trump compromise. Even more damning and fucked up than even to Trump would be that. Like, he would honestly be more scared of that than he would sex crimes because he can always deny that. Like, that's the thing he can't deny, you know?
Think about, they've released 3 million files in this investigation so far. DOJ has. It's reported they have 3 million files that they're not going to release. And I think that...
Because, you know, having confirmation that Donald Trump was compromised vis-a-vis Epstein would ruin every little tiny inch of credibility he still has with the base right now, with his MAGA base, because the MAGA base is obsessed already with the fact that he hasn't released the Epstein files, right? They're already pissed off, a percentage of them, as they rightfully should be, because, right? So he's clinging on to that last piece, right? In my opinion.
What Trump has said and done in public, you know, grab him by the pussy, that became public. We had the whole trial with Stormy Daniels that came out about the Playboy Bunny, both of which while his wife was pregnant. We played last week on an episode, him talking about his age of consent was about 12. So given his public persona and how he behaves.
Yeah, he said 12 when he was talking to, like, who the fuck was it? Some shock jock, I think. Back in the 90s. I can only
imagine how despicable his behavior is in private.
They like me very much.
Because what he is willing to say and do in public shocks the conscience. And then let's not forget Bubba. I mean, the email about Bubba. Like, so if this is going on in the public sphere, I think you're right. I can only imagine how deplorable and appalling his behavior is in private.
And the link that I'm trying to make there is that
he's the same in public as he is in private, is what everyone says. I'm
as
like,
opposed to all of the others, was able to make such a foolish decision to take American troops into Iran when every other American president, both Democrat and Republican, told Bibi no, especially after Bibi was a ringleader in Iraq in 2011. Came over here, lied to Congress about yellow cake and all of this stuff. A lot of that was a big Israel-driven war when Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. So my point is that if Jeffrey Epstein was blackmailing people and that's how he got all of his money, and he
fully
worked
on
for all
board
of
with
these
that
nefarious
chat.
characters, it's not that big of a jump to assume that Benjamin Netanyahu has the goods, that the Israeli government has the goods. We know that Ehud Barak was really close.
And look, if anyone was going to have it, it would be them. Like, there is literally no one better. Mossad only is seconded by the CIA, okay? And their capabilities to fucking manipulate and obfuscate shit. You know, whatever the fuck they do, all the shit they do all over the world. So, I mean, this is known. This is like, you can look it up.
With
it's not
Jeffrey
really
Epstein.
like
it's safe to assume that that's
opinion,
information,
like
compromising information, would stay with Mossad,
from what I remember,
and then be carried upon, for each subsequent prime minister. And as all of this is unraveling, American foreign policy faceplant, the Secretary of Defense, I refuse to call it the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, he tries so hard to be masculine. I've never seen somebody have to try so hard to be such a masculine guy. And in his effort to be uber masculine, he ends up looking like a pussy, like a performative dipshit pipsqueak. And here he is trying to come out after this, attack on Iran and act like he's a big guy. Play the clip.
Israel has clear missions as well, for which we are grateful. Capable partners. As we've said since the beginning, capable partners are good partners. Unlike so many of our traditional allies who wring their hands and clutch their pearls, hemming and hawing.
Capable, he means people that are willing to do what we ask them to do and shut the fuck up. That's what he means. Capable.
About the use of force. America, regardless of what so-called international institutions say, is unleashing the most lethal and precise air power campaign in history.
Despite what you might have heard, I'm translating for you. Despite what you might have heard about us indiscriminately bombing children and using AI to bomb people and picking targets, hitting multiple, doing double taps, that's not what we're doing. We're using precision on unused before bombs, which is lies upon lies.
B-2s, fighters, drones, missiles.
Okay. All of that stuff about Israel being like this great partner is simply because they're willing to commit war crimes.
Right.
We cannot say this enough. The United States went into
like I said,
war
with
a war criminal, a genocidal,
attack,
pathological, lying war criminal. It's unbelievable how much Western media can apply a set of morals and logic and deduction skills to Vladimir Putin. And then when it comes to Benjamin Netanyahu, it's crickets. And there is no difference. Both of these people are diabolical, pathological warmongers. And Benjamin Netanyahu wants Israeli hegemony. That's what he wants. And he has a weak American president with this performative Fox News narcissist that he can easily dog walk. But what Hegseth is trying to signal there, our traditional partners did all this hand wringing and pearl clutching, is that we've got us a real live war criminal here and we won't have to play by the rules anymore.
Correct. Yeah.
We can do whatever the fuck we want. We can bomb kids just like they did in Gaza.
She's pretty much saying what I said.
Absolute nightmare.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and Hegseth, let's not forget, he oversaw the bombing of fishing boats, which is absolutely considered a war crime from what I have read on this. So it's kind of a situation where he
it's
does
a war
not
crime
intend to follow international law.
Yeah.
So
Y'all,
he
it's
doesn't
a
want
war
to be
crime.
surrounded by allies that look to international law and abide by it. And then I take it one step further and say, why would this administration follow international law? They don't follow U.S. law. They run around and they violate people's rights. They do shit that's illegal. They go to court. They're told you cannot do this. Then they're held in contempt. They have no respect for domestic law or international law. And Pete Hegseth, the bar is so high on who the worst cabinet secretary is, but he gets my vote because he has so much responsibility and he is so incapable of doing anything with competence, thought, or even advising Donald Trump. I wouldn't even trust his advice in this situation.
Well, I mean, make no mistake about it. He's not running the Department of Defense. Stephen Miller is, just like he's running the DOJ.
Right.
And so these people are just figureheads, but there are real diabolical players. I think it's easier to say that Benjamin Netanyahu runs more of the Department of Defense of the United States of America than Pete Hegseth does. Pete Hegseth, nobody's going to listen to him. And he has now unleashed massive instability at the Pentagon. So you have, this crusty neck, dementia duck as a president who is talking about the drapes in the White House on Truth Social, tweeting about Lady Gaga's.
The most important thing is the ballroom. I have to dance with Melania before I die. Literally his brain, I swear.
Dad endorsing him like 2 years ago. I mean, brain is totally cooked. And then you have the Joint Chiefs of the Pentagon who said, do not listen to Bibi. Do not invade Iran. It will be a shit show. It will have regional implications. It will deplete our munitions, blah, blah. Benjamin Netanyahu said, don't listen to them. Listen to me. And of course, I don't think anybody listens to Pete Hegseth. I think just as much as we disrespect him, I do think he's that disrespect. Nobody sits down at the cabinet room and thinks, oh, this guy's so smart. And so the Pentagon is completely unraveling now.
I don't know about that,
up this
Jen.
post.
I don't know about that.
The Washington Post, the paper formerly known as the Washington Post, is reporting the mood inside the Pentagon is intense and paranoid. Pentagon leaders worry the U.S. will expend its air defense stockpiles and the conflict will, quote, spiral out of control. This is precisely what Pentagon Joint Chiefs Chair Dan Crane warned of last week. And in the excerpt, they write, the vast number of retaliatory attacks and the array of sites being targeted, including non-military sites in Arab nations across the Middle East, is concerning after so much of the regime's top leadership was killed. This person continued, officials are worried about the command and control.
Yeah, such a fuck up, to be honest. Exactly, because like, yeah, you can't change that.
Of those weapons, the person said. So leadership starts at the top. And when you have Dementia Duck, who clearly is being ruled by Benjamin Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu has had a hard-on for Iran for 40 years. And he is trying to roll out this George Bush thing. We will be.
Yeah. Like I said, the NEOCONS, Jen. You should know that. Hopefully you tie it together.
Greeted as liberators. And of course, there are some Iranians a lot of Iranians that are incredibly happy that the Ayatollah is out. But what does this leave? Typically, when you remove one hard line like this, there's just an array of fuckery behind it. And the big question for Americans is, do we want to continue this multi-trillion-dollar spend on behalf of Benjamin Netanyahu in a region that contributes to the national deficit? What happens typically when these wars start, we're going to see terror attacks in the United States. We're probably going to see
on our bases.
Cyber attacks
on our bases.
This is going to be used, this war, to stop us from voting, which is fine with Benjamin Netanyahu, because he doesn't want elections in Israel either, because he's supposed to be in prison as well as Donald Trump.
True.
So you have these two aging autocrats who are expanding the imperialism. And I think
they're trying to get their
Benjamin
last
Netanyahu
hurrah.
Has the goods on Donald Trump, who wants to die in the White House, in his ballroom. He's not leaving 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And I think the person running the United States military is Benjamin Netanyahu.
God damn.
All right, listener, I value sleep. It's right.
She's not mincing words. She's like, you know who runs our military? Benjamin Netanyahu. It ain't Pete Hegseth. That's basically what she just said. Wow. That's an indictment. Because it's so true. Like, it feels so true. Because, like, we're doing his bidding. And whether we're doing it for the fact that Trump has been compromised, or he's just doing it because he's got an ego stroked by it, Got the reach around from Benjamin Netanyahu when he came last time. You know, like, whatever. It doesn't matter. Right? Yeah. So we get to be the ones that are fucked, though. Not consensually either.
All right, this is a big
good
week,
kind of
big
fucking.
weekend, early week into news. Of course, we know Benjamin Netanyahu dog-walked Donald Trump straight into war with Iran. Netanyahu has wanted this war for 40 years, and Donald Trump is the president that is stupid enough to give it to him. And there's a big story that is being buried in this news cycle because obviously going into war, especially a Republican-led war in the Middle East, is highly unpopular with the American public. But they're distracting, number one, from the Epstein files, and number two, from election fuckery. This regime is coming after the midterms, and ProPublica has, I think, the biggest story of the week, aside from the Iran war. Trump officials attended a summit of election deniers who want the president to take over the midterms. The meeting's participants included Kurt Olson, a White House lawyer charged with reinvestigating the 2020 election, and Heather Honey, the Department of Homeland Security official in charge of election integrity. And here's an excerpt from this article. Several high-ranking federal election officials attended a summit last week at which prominent figures who worked to overturn Donald Trump's loss in the 2020 election pressed the president to declare a national emergency to take over this year's midterms. And Michael Flynn, y'all may remember Michael Flynn. All of these crazy characters are there. So what is the national emergency going to be? Here's probably what's going to happen. We go to war with Iran. We're probably going to be cyber attacked. And then he's going to declare rule over the elections and nationalize them. This is coming. This man is
so the internet's going to go down
to give up power. While we're at war, he's talking about the draperies in the White House. He's talking about his ballroom. He's tweeting about Lady Gaga's father. He doesn't care. He doesn't care one bit. But let me tell you who cares about all of this stuff. And he wants to make sure that the United States of America has a weak, easily manipulatable president, and it's Benjamin Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu is a complete pathological liar. AIPAC spent close to $300 million, the same amount that Elon Musk spent to make sure that Donald Trump was president. They all know he's a dementia duck, and so the shot clock is running. They have to get as much out of this weak president as they possibly can.
You know what I mean?
Here is Benjamin Netanyahu speaking about this war. Play the clip.
This is the third day of the Operation Roaring Lion, the operation the Israeli army and the state of Israel set out to, with our great friends, the United States of America and President Trump, to thwart existential threats to Israel and great threats to America and the entire world. When I stand here in a place that was bombarded by the terrorists in Tehran against innocent civilians, you see the difference. The tyrants of Tehran target civilians. We target the tyrants of Tehran to protect civilians. I've said for many years that they threaten not only Israel and not only America. They chant death to Israel, death to America. That's their ultimate target. But I said that they would also target those in between, that they would target Europe. They did. And if this regime...
Okay. Does this guy think that we're stupid? I mean, number one, everybody's seen the reporting that a girls' school in Iran was targeted, and those little girls were civilians. Hospitals have been targeted. But furthermore, let's just go back to Palestine. I mean, this guy on purpose targets civilians, and then he stands there and just propagandizes. And that's the thing that's so frustrating about these men. They get away with this stuff, and they get an assist by the Western media. Benjamin Netanyahu came to Washington dog walked Donald Trump straight into this war because Donald Trump is too lazy to have convictions. All he cares about are his personal grievances and decorating the White House. This old queen could give two shits about it. But Benjamin Netanyahu is big on this Israeli hegemony. That is his big issue. He has been dying to bomb Iran for 40 years.
40 years.
Previous American presidents listened to the Pentagon, listened to the Joint Chiefs, and said, no, it will unravel into a huge regional mess. Do not do it. Donald Trump doesn't take advice from anybody. And all Benjamin Netanyahu has to do is flatter him and say,
Jasmine
you're
Crocker
be so
won
great at this. You're going to be
60%.
considered a savior. Everybody's going to say that you're the best president in the world. And he'll go, okay, I'm in. Let's do it. Or does Benjamin Netanyahu have the goods on him from his buddy Jeffrey Epstein? I mean, it's...
Okay. I think she repeated herself. I'm done. Let's go to this, and then we're going to do a debate.
You also talked with this guy, Dave Riley here, who his ideology, it seems like it's pretty aligned with this kind of emerging element on the far right. Fuentes associated, bit of a Catholic supremacist as well, and
so he says.
right to jail. Yeah, right and away. Deeply anti-Semitic as well.
That's the main thing. Yeah.
Talk about his ideology and what your conversation was like with him, who's obviously at Idaho based.
Yeah, Riley is. Okay, well, just some quick background on Riley. He's one of the people who came from out of state to kind of be like, this is a place I can kind of move in and do things. And he defines himself as a Catholic for sure. His original brand was around white nationalism. That's kind of the way he would have, I don't know if he would have said that as much, but he was in discords and stuff like that where they were kind of planning the original Unite the Right rally back in the day. And he sort of reinvented himself as a sort of Catholic nationalist, of the way he describes himself. But he's really centered on the conspiracies around Jewish people. And when I met him in this bar, outdoor bar called Whispers, which, it's like they're playing like, Hearts.
Sounds like a gay bar.
Ballads out in the lobby, and like it was out on a beautiful deck in this resort in Coeur d'Alene. And he's wearing like a huge crucifix around his neck. Like if it were diamond, you'd think he was you'd think he was like Playboy Cardi or something. And
damn.
He was, he's like, everything goes back to Jews, and he is under the belief, this is a place with very few Jews. And he feels like he can really make inroads around that. And on the other side of this is a conflict with a far right Christian Zionist movement in North Idaho. And I think it's impossible to talk about Riley and his activism without talking about them. Because there's a church called Candlelight Church. I was, when I went there, they told me like, they told us to
Candlelight Church,
essentially not pray to Samuel Alito, but they put up a big picture of him.
What?
Yeah, no, they
what?
was like, yeah, no, there's like a big picture of Samuel Alito. It's in the story. You got to like squint, but there's like, it goes by really quickly. I blew it up bigger.
Vergonia.
So they put a picture of Samuel Alito, and they're like, they want to pray for him, and they're like, we forgive him for being Catholic or whatever, but like, we hope that this man can, do the right thing, and he's hard or whatever. And they have a huge Israel flag on the side of the stage. I mean, like monster sized. It's not like, oh, we support Israel with like a little thing. It's just like huge flag. And locally, Riley has been at war with the pastor there, this guy named Paul Van Noy. And it is this conflict between sort of philo-Semitic, far-right, philo-Semitic far-right church and like a kind of anti-Semitic activism in which everything is centered around the problems in your life that you're having right now. The Jews are responsible for that, and for me, it's so tiresome and awful. I've heard so much of it, and and there are very few Jews in the area. And if you were Jewish, I would want to leave. Like I would not want to be there.
Yeah.
Because it's like, and it's sad. That's sad. We should not have places in the country where you want to do this. Also, the other thing, he's wearing keffiyeh. He's like, he's really involved himself in like, Palestine stuff, and he tried to relate to me on that because I like on my mother's side we do have Palestinians, and it is the clearest example I can think of, actually, where people have taken the conflict that emerged after October 7th and the genocide in Gaza and exploited it really for their own ends, because this activism does not help the cause.
No, it hurts. It's just it almost is. It would be.
Turd in the punch bowl is what Alex Jones calls that.
Yeah, it would if like the deep state was trying to discredit the pro-Palestine movement, they would elevate guys like this, Nazis wearing keffiyehs. It's really disgusting.
Yeah, and I don't see anybody, around him on his side advocating that North Idaho become a place where we take in a bunch of Arab refugees. I don't see that. Right. It's like we let everybody die there, so we can blame Israel for.
They don't want anyone to come to Idaho.
And we can
That's why they're
to
there.
Punish the Jews
what
at
do you
home.
mean?
I don't see anybody be like, "Oh, well, how do we
fuck
help
Idaho?
Them? How can I relate to them personally?" It doesn't really. You don't really see that. So yeah, I mean, this environment is not healthy for anybody who is, a so-called normie. Whether you're, the type of person who voted for Mitt Romney in 2012, I had to think for a second if it was 2012 when Mitt Romney was a while ago. I mean, most of these people did, right? So this is not healthy. It's not healthy psychologically for
Mitt
people.
Romney.
I mean, having
remember
covered
him.
this material for a long time, it's taken a toll on me. Really, I mean, I know how difficult it can be to like kind of live in this world where you're hearing this stuff all the time, and that's what a lot of people are subjected to in Coeur d'Alene and North Idaho and in rural places all around the country where whites are a majority, where Republicans dominate, and there's very little opposition. Trumpism has started to mutate, and that is essentially what this story is about.
On the topic of that mutation, how have the Epstein revelations impacted some of these guys? I mean, I would imagine that for the anti-Semitic white nationalists, they have opinions about Jeffrey Epstein that are pretty anti-Jewish, but also their God King, Donald Trump, is heavily implicated in it, and the cover-up has been so brazen and obvious. Like, has it caused any dissonance in their minds?
That's really funny that you mentioned that, because I was called to speak for a class at Columbia yesterday, and the topic was something else, and then they're like at the last minute, be like, "Do you mind talking about Epstein instead?" It was just like everybody. It is.
Oh God!
It is the dominant. It's the dominant story right now. It is. It really is. And I think broadly, what I would say, you can imagine what some of the folks on Riley's side would say about Epstein without you don't need to even look it up. You just already know. Right. You've already intimated it in the question. I think what is happening to Trump's base broadly, and I think this is like, just to kind of, stand back.
Maybe he'll back up what I said earlier.
Is that the core, it remains unmoved, but we are seeing like a little bit of, if you ever see like a wound, which is a good way to describe the MAGA base, but like, when it's like it heals over time, you see like the edges, the center is still like tender for a while, right, but the edges start to fade a little bit. That is kind of like what's happening, I think, a little bit. And it's too early to say that MAGA is done or something because the Epstein things, but I've never seen anything quite as damaging as this. And I think
he agrees with me then.
there is sadly a strong anti-Semitic conspiratorial base within the base.
No shit.
And Trump.
It's all of them
Trump's
in there.
failure to respond. If you recall,
it's a big tent, he would say.
There was
remember
that Wall Street Journal thing with the drawing?
No leftists allowed.
The first reaction to that was just kind of like, oh, people draw anything or whatever. It was just like,
It's fake. It's fake.
Yeah, la. I don't hear it.
I think his son went on TV and said that, my
dad doesn't even like to draw.
My dad doesn't even like to draw. He only draws buildings or something like that.
Yeah,
so
but
dumb.
You couldn't shake the suggestion that the drawing of the breast was very small and like it looked, it just didn't look great. And you can't prove anything with that.
It
didn't look great. And even though the first response was kind of like, oh, I don't see no evil, hear no evil. I do think it started to penetrate there. And then over time, as it became clear that he really was trying to keep this stuff out and there's so much of it, I really do think it's impacting people. And the best thing.
It was just a quick glitch, but you just said at Bannon and Epstein's correspondence.
Yeah, I think Bannon is a really good example of this because this is a guy who essentially, you could write a version, you could, argue a version of this in which Bannon himself created MAGA, right? Like he's so influential and he's so important. And
I agree, actually.
He's been the driver of so many events over the years, including things like
Project 2026. Bannon knows nothing about it.
Like
Trust me.
And you have people publicly,
or does he?
Elon Musk, who is in the files himself, kind of blaming Bannon and trying to say trying to scapegoat him. And, I think it's a way to distance himself from it. And, of course. But you have like regular guys like in the movie, like calling for Bannon and, to be cast aside. And it's bad because people who work with Bannon.
Was he going to say castrated?
Online. You see people like Jack Posobiec who works for.
They want Bannon castrated.
On his
I don't know
War
what to
Room
say.
Show. Like people in his replies are saying things like, "You associate yourself with Steve Bannon. Like we don't want you." So this discord does not seem like something that is easily repaired and put together. That doesn't mean that MAGA isn't still incredibly powerful. I think it very much is. But and locally in Idaho, you're going to feel those type of things over there too. There's a kind of paranoia around these things. Like some people are listening to Nick Fuentes, and Nick Fuentes is telling you, I don't want to vote for that. I don't want to vote for that anymore. No one should vote for this party anymore. That has huge reverberations because Riley and his ilk, they really look up to Fuentes.
Lastly on this, because we just had an IM, and I'm not sure what Dan the Birdman is referring to.
Except for some of them.
They said, ask Michael about
which don't
the greater
like Fuentes because
Idaho
he's.
Does that fit into
got the last name
your
Fuentes.
reporting?
That's all I'm going to say.
I don't know enough about that to comment. I don't want to say so. I don't want to like
Nicky
do
Fuentes.
the thing where I like pretend to know enough. So I don't know enough about the Greater Idaho movement to
I don't know
to talk about
anything,
it.
so fair enough. But Dan the Birdman, maybe that's a topic for another episode. Michael, thank you so much for your time today. You can read this full piece in Mother Jones, and then of course be on the
it's Mother
lookout
Jones.
for your book that's coming up in April. You mentioned.
Yeah, April 7th, Strange People on the Hill. And it's about, if you're familiar with Peter Brimlow of VDR, they purchased a castle, a beautiful historic castle that really should be for everyone. It should be a public park, in my opinion. And they put it on, it's situated on a hill that overlooks this tiny tourist town. And it's about what happened to the people in the town after that, from 2020 to the end of the 2024 election.
Awesome.
What a niche. All right.
Sadly, there will likely be more. Before it ends, that's the way it is.
I think this destroys Donald Trump's presidency. I mean,
he's like, I hate to see all these young men dying in Russia. We need to stop the war now. Now he's like, that's the way it is. We die. Who cares? Like, the fuck, bro?
If he goes over there and just kills a bunch of Iranians, a bunch of Israelis are dead, a bunch of U.S. soldiers are dead, but the regime still stands. I mean, I think that's death for the rest of his presidency.
This is not going to be sending troops into Iran.
Except that President Trump has told the New York Post literally 2 hours ago he's not ruling out sending U.S. ground troops.
If this turns into a full-on regime change forever war, that's something that's going to prove to be very unpopular in this midterm year.
Our service members deserve better than a commander-in-chief who does not have a plan. They deserve better than a 5-time draft dodger.
This is a total betrayal of his own voters.
President Trump has made it explicitly clear that America first means whatever he wants it to mean, but that hasn't stopped many other people attempting to redefine it on his behalf. Ben Shapiro says that attacking Iran is America first because it serves the US national interest. Lindsey Graham and Mark Levine, among others, say that starting a war can, in a roundabout way, be an act of peace if it prevents war and suffering in the future. What none of the advocates for attacking Iran can argue with a straight face is that Trump...
What was the last argument? The fuck? Oh, shit. Yeah. Famously, more war causes less war. Mm-hmm.
Campaigned on war with Iran.
As long as you put the word preventative in front of it. You just gotta have that word preventative in there, and you're good. Remember that. You have to say preventative war.
It was, of course, explicitly the opposite.
Not
in
preemptive,
addition, there must
preventative.
also be a complete commitment to dismantling the entire globalist neocon establishment that is perpetually dragging us into endless wars, pretending to fight for freedom and democracy abroad.
Look at the title of my stream. It's like, no. You gave him a W, Mr. President. You gave them the W. The win. You gave him the W.
We should have never got into the Middle East. We should have never got into the Middle East.
That's why I'm going to go back and get into the worst bee's nest ever.
Stupid days of never-ending wars. I am the president who delivers peace. I was the first president in decades who didn't start a war. I think we would have been good with Iran. I don't want to do anything bad to Iran. Speaking of World War III, I'll keep you out of World War III. What would happen if we had a war? We won't. With me.
Well, both President Trump and Vice President Vance billed themselves as the pro-peace ticket, a message which massively expanded his election-winning coalition. Tulsi Gabbard said only Trump could prevent war with Iran as she switched sides to join him. And J.D. Vance articulated very clearly that a war with Iran would be expensive and against his country's
Don't like
interests.
Piers Morgan much, mate.
Israel has the right
he's
to
got
defend
points.
itself, but America's interest is sometimes going to be distinct. Like sometimes we're going to have overlapping interests, and sometimes we're going to have distinct interests. And our interest, I think, very much is in not going to war with Iran. Right. It would be a huge distraction of resources. It would be massively expensive to our country.
So the obvious question is,
Says the
what's
vice president
changed? Is
a couple
Iran
months
more
ago?
of a threat now than it was 18 months ago? If it is, nobody's plausibly explained why. Trump has worn many hats over the past few weeks in attempting to justify the war that is now underway. It's the protesters, it's the nukes, it's the long-range ballistic missiles. It's the inherent inconvenience of an evil regime which has for decades been a thorn in America's side. But none of this will satisfy those in Trump's base who voted specifically for the pro-peace ticket, and is unlikely to satisfy the masses of moderates and swing voters who care above all about cheaper groceries
Exactly
and
what we've
higher
been saying.
wages. Clearly, America first means different things to different people, but it stands to reason that above all, it surely meant fixing your own country.
You showed the
before
clips,
meddling
man.
with everybody else's. Well,
You
joining me
got the
to discuss
clips.
all of
Like,
this
it's all you got to
is Ben
show.
Ferguson,
It's
co-host
fucking
of
Trump
The Verdict with
speaking
Ted
his own
Cruz.
words. What
Tim
you
Miller,
didn't
commentator
mean
for
any of
The
those
War,
words?
Dave Smith, host of Part of the Problem.
I
Jack
didn't mean a
Posobiec,
single
host of
word I
Some
said.
Events,
I was
and Joe
campaigning.
Palucci, aka
When you
Jojo
campaign,
from
it means
Joe's.
nothing.
Well, welcome to all of you. Ben Ferguson,
What matters
what's
is what
happened
you do
here?
afterwards.
What's happened to the peace-loving
And your
Trump
legacy.
who wasn't going to go into the Middle East? I saw Axios reporting that no president in history has now launched attacks on more countries than Donald Trump. Where does that sit with America first, stay out of the Middle East, stay out of foreign wars?
Yeah, I think there's a very specific aspect of what Donald Trump's doing that the American people are okay with, and it's different than forever wars. He did not going to go in and do what we did in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I think what the president also understood in pivoting is once he was back
Sure,
in the
dude.
White House and saw the intelligence and realized what Iran is doing and what they're clearly trying to do and what they're trying to do not only with Israel, but also with the United States of America, you just cannot allow them to get even anywhere close to having a nuclear weapon. They are a threat to Americans. They've killed more American troops in my lifetime than any other country. Their proxies in Hezbollah and Hamas are a great example.
Lies.
Of that. They are a sponsor of terror, which again is the worst that I've seen in my lifetime as well. Anyone that's a bad actor in that part of the world, they will fund.
Lies.
They love funding terrorists. And once you saw what they did to Israel and the attack there and advocating and supporting and advancing and giving aid and arms and money and training to what happened in Israel, I think the president had to look at it differently. Now, to be clear, this president, and I've spoken with the White House a lot lately. I've sat with the Speaker of the House the day before the State of the Union. I sat yesterday with Senator Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio. They all are saying the same exact thing.
Them.
This is not going to be sending troops into Iran. So I think that is the biggest difference
Just
here.
Kurdish
the
troops.
president understands a threat. He also understands endless wars are never a good thing, and he doesn't want to do that at all, and he won't.
Right, except that President Trump has told the New York Post literally 2 hours ago he's not ruling out sending US ground troops into Iran if they were necessary. He said, I don't have the yips with respect to boots on the ground. Every president says there'll be no boots on the ground. I don't say it. I say probably don't need them, but if they're necessary. So
you
Trump
look at
is leaving that
Venezuela
door open.
But look at Venezuela, and that's what he's talking about. If there's a situation where you have to go in and take someone out in the way that we did in Venezuela, by the way, we're not invading Venezuela. We're not staying in Venezuela. You have to look at the context of what the president is saying there. Like, I don't think that's ambiguity in any capacity by this president. What he's made clear is we're not going to go in and invade and take over a country. That is not what he wants to do.
There's none ambiguity.
I would say Venezuela is a
Sure,
success. Were there technically boots on the ground there for X number of hours? Yes, there were. Are we staying there indefinitely? No. Have we invaded the country and taken over? No, we have not. And that's
how do
why
you
the
know,
president
bro?
said, not once, but twice in his 2 speeches, I am preparing a place for you to be able to take over your own country. This may be the best chance you get to do it to the people of Iran. So you better go out there and take back your country as we are doing this for you. And we've seen the people in Iran. They have celebrated that overwhelmingly.
Okay, Tim Miller, it seems like there's a lot of hoops being
Come on,
jumped
Tim.
to
Come
try
on,
and
Republican.
explain what is, to me, I've known Donald Trump
Actual neocon right here, Tim Miller.
a long time. There's been a clear
A never
change
Trumper.
in his attitude towards meddling in foreign countries and foreign wars, and in particular in the Middle East. And, he might have perfectly good reasons for doing it, but it's certainly a very different rhetoric now that he's using to what he was using when he was campaigning to be re-elected. This problem, it seems to me, with the attack on Iran is a massive country. It has a very ruthless, very large regime, which basically extends to all aspects of Iranian society. There are at least 1.5 million Revolutionary Guard, regular army, paramilitaries, possibly as many as 2 million, none of whom at the moment appear ready to throw in the towel as Donald Trump has asked them to. So if people do rise up in the way that Donald Trump would like, his utopia is that all these airstrikes bully the regime in such a way that the people sense their moment and they rise up and they overthrow them. But at the moment, they would be facing, a lot of them, immediate death, as we saw when the recent protests were repressed. And that seems to me to be the fundamental flaw here in what Donald Trump wants to happen and the reality on the ground.
A lot of that sounds right to me, Piers. Look, this is obviously a betrayal of his campaign promises. That MAGA supporters could spin it however they want, but J.D. Vance in that clip you played was just very blunt about this, and there's nothing that has changed on the ground, making Iran a bigger threat since fall of 2024.
Nothing.
In fact, Iran's been degraded a lot since fall of 2024.
This is a Republican.
And so, this is a total betrayal of his own voters.
Oh my God.
But to the actual plan here, I think what Ben just laid out is totally incoherent. Right, like if the idea here is that this is a moment where the Iranian people have an opportunity to grab their own freedom, and we're going to help them. Okay, well, that requires troops on the ground. I mean, like, that would be a coherent objective. At least we want to free the Iranian people from the Ayatollah. We're not saying that we're going to do that. Pete Hegseth was out saying that this is not a regime change operation, and we are not doing democracy promotion. Pete Hegseth said that. So we can't both be on the side of the Iranian people and also not be interested in a regime change war and democracy promotion. Like, you have to do one or the other. The Iranian people cannot overthrow. Just really quick,
health matters above anything else. There's no doubt about that.
Successors in mind. All of them are dead. They've all been killed. He said to The Atlantic or to John Carl, I think, at ABC last night, that we don't know who the successor is now. So this is very much not a Venezuela situation. It is not a regime change.
And we don't know who it is because fucking they killed everyone.
And I think you're intellectually honest enough to understand that. I don't think I have to explain it to you like a third grader. I think you're now just trying to act like Venezuela and Iran are the same thing. They're very different places. That is obvious.
You were the one that said
they're the same thing. The point I made about Venezuela was very simple. We had troops go in and take out the leader, and then we left. It's the same thing that we're talking about now.
Right. Well, 4 troops have died in this case, so it's already very different than that. It's already very different than that. 4 troops have died.
Again,
so it's already very different, and we don't even have a successor in mind.
Dying for a political point you're trying to score. I know you don't like the president. I know you don't like this plan. But let me also say this about Iran.
What's the plan?
There are
what is the plan? Yeah, good point.
I'm going to tell you the 2 objectives since you put words in my mouth. Number 1, it's to make sure you take out a regime that is sponsoring terrorism all over the world and has made it very clear that they want to do what they did in Israel, also in America and other places. So it's a national security standpoint there. It's also a national security standpoint with oil and the Strait of Hormuz as well. That's very clear. They're worried about that area as well. And the third is, yes, when you get rid of someone like this, of course you want the people to be able to be free in their country and not be able to be killed in the streets like we've witnessed, where tens of thousands of them have been exterminated in the last month while they try to stand up to their regime. So there can be multiple things here. Is that different than Venezuela? Of course, because every nation is different. I think you should know that.
Yeah.
Okay,
well, look, that doesn't sound like a plan because we don't know who the next regime is.
Hang on. I want to bring in the other panel members. Let me bring in the other panel members. Dave Smith. I want to bring in Dave Smith first. I will get to you, Jojo. Dave Smith, what's your feeling about what we're seeing here? I mean, I look, for example, I've got lots of friends who live in Dubai. They moved there for a good economic life, the sunshine, but also primarily safety. They would tell me they leave their front door open in Dubai because nobody gets robbed, right? This is a very safe place to live. Suddenly they're waking up and they're seeing 5-star hotels getting blown up. And it's causing enormous uncertainty throughout that entire region. And, causing enormous damage to the perceived business model of places like Dubai. So there are real-time consequences now of this within 48 hours of these strikes, which make it very, very
about
different
the
to anything
capitalistic
we've seen
input
before. Do you think this can?
What about capitalism, mate?
And if it doesn't work, where does that leave us all?
We can't leave capitalism by the wayside, mate. That's right.
Donald Trump has destroyed his presidency. Which I think is the most likely scenario at this point, and I don't say that with any glee. I mean, I think that's really bad for the country, and I understand that this is kind of devolving into like a partisan fight, but look, I mean, the justification for this war is totally incoherent. It's actually worse than any of the wars in the global war on terrorism, just in terms of how incoherent the justification is. I mean, all of the wars were based off lies, but at least the lies kind of, I mean, at this point, it's like, I don't even know what, I mean, I guess Ben will just defend whatever war Donald Trump launches, but their nuclear program was totally,
taking out the worst
of course.
All right.
You already,
that's a good idea.
I know, we've all heard the talking points. Okay.
Are you saying Iran is not the worst sponsor of terrorism? Like, serious question. Like, you act like you don't know that. You do realize that Iran fundamentally funds, trains Hezbollah, Hamas, and other terrorist groups.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yes, I know.
I mean, that's not like breaking news.
Can I just talk for a second since you already spoke?
Sure, but like,
honestly,
don't act like you're a smart guy. Like, you should know that. You're downplaying Iran's threat to the world.
Dude, shut up for a second. I've heard a million times
idiots
like you who go on Fox News.
You're saying it's not true.
Dude, can I just fucking talk, dude? This is so boring. I've heard a million of Fox News.
Then.
Okay.
I go on CNN too, by the way. Okay, so like it's not just Fox News, buddy.
Okay, So I've heard the talking point a million times that Iran is the #1 sponsor of terrorism. It is something that the war hawks love to say. I have actually never once heard a coherent definition of terrorism and then a demonstration that they're the worst of it. The IDF is the worst terrorist organization in the region. Let's get real. The United States of America is arguably the worst terrorist organization in the world.
Let's
If you
go.
look over the
Actually,
last
good
25
take.
years, how many
Okay.
innocent civilians we've slaughtered. You're getting us. You're getting us into the neocon.
Yeah.
That's right. You're
Yeah.
getting us into the neocons' 7th war,
Yep.
which they've been dying
That
for
American
the last
flag thing
25
behind
years.
I was right. I was right.
No, actually, if you love this country, if you're a real patriot, you'd have to hate
no,
this
you
government.
said America
and the
killed-
war
is like the worst
policies
terrorist in the
that are
world, more than
destroying
Iran,
them.
dude.
Yeah. DC killed a lot more people than Iran did, and that's George W. Bush and Barack Obama and Joe Biden
There's
and
mass
Donald
graves
Trump.
that
It's
would
has
disagree
nothing to
with you,
do.
but okay.
Dude, just all you
Mass
can do
graves.
is just interrupt because you know you have no point on your side. Anyway, Pierce,
Pierce,
what actually
are there not
matters
mass
here?
graves in Iran?
Anyway,
True or
what
false?
actually matters here is that the calculation has been drastically changed and the incentives have been changed by Donald Trump, even since the 12-day war. Look, for the 12-day war to work out the way it did, really relied on a major piece of that puzzle, which was that Iran, for self-preservation reasons, showed restraint in their response. They called ahead. They let us know where they were going to target.
yeah.
They made sure they
They
didn't
did,
kill
actually.
any
He's right.
Americans.
Dave
This
is correct.
time, once Donald Trump killed the Ayatollah, they offered through their Italian negotiators, they offered a ceasefire. Iran said no. Iran has now made the calculation that they simply can't let America come in and kill the Ayatollah and not respond, because then they'll just keep picking on them. Donald Trump already announced this was a regime change war with no
shit. They
plan.
got the right to retaliate,
Absolutely no
too. I
plan.
mean, come on.
As he has admitted, as Rubio has admitted, they have no plan for what comes next. And this is the scenario, I got to say,
My
man, I
chat's
hate to be
broken today,
vindicated
think.
like this, Pierce, but this is the scenario that all of us were warning about since well before the 12-day war. That now you've gotten yourself into a situation, Americans are dead. I think Mr. Miller misspoke when he said 4 people are dead. 4 Americans are dead over there. Probably more to come. Donald Trump says more to come. We've had a couple Americans killed in Austin
Donald Trump's
in
like,
a
we'll
blowback
expect
terrorist
it.
attack that's happened already since then. And like, dude, the lack of wisdom here from the Trump administration, like, you have no idea what you just kicked off. There is absolutely no reason to think that this thing is not going to be a catastrophe, just like the last 6 theaters in the global war on terrorism.
He's right.
And by the way, you know, for just final one very quick last point. I'm sorry, Pierce, but then really, you know, interrupting me there a bunch. Let me just say one thing. For all the like supposed like pretend intellectuals out there, like the Gad Sads and the Sam Harris, who have spent a career talking about how violent and irrational the Muslim world is because you can't even draw a cartoon of Muhammad or they'll start killing people. Hey, what do you think happens when you murder an Ayatollah? Did anyone know that that's not just a political figure to the Shiites, who we've had no beef
to
with
be
really
clear, your
so
foreign
far?
policy
We've
is
had a
don't kill
Shiite
bad guys because
jihad.
they fight back. That's
Kill
like
Ayatollah. He's
most
87-year-old man. Who
brutally
cares
I've
about
ever
him?
heard of.
Oh, no, actually, Ben, my foreign policy is don't
Adolf
start
Hitler,
wars
I
of
guess, would still be
aggression.
alive if we used your foreign
Oh,
policy.
good one, Ben. You just speak in slogans. My foreign policy is
Adolf
don't
Hitler's a
start-
bad guy. You
Shut
better not
up for a
attack him or go
second.
after him and stop
Shut
him
up
from
for a
invading all of
second.
Europe and
God,
taking over the
you guys
world.
are just so
don't
dumb.
mess
It's
with
your
Vladimir
whole game.
Putin ever, because that
So-
guy's a
so
really
Ben-
bad guy. That's your foreign policy.
So Ben, you're just gonna say the dumbest thing and then interrupt me if I respond. My
You
foreign policy
literally
is the-
just said, I'm in Texas where the Austin attack happened, and your policy is, hey, be really nice to bad people, and then they might not kill you. That is your foreign policy. And you're
not
now
what he
saying
said,
that
bro.
Donald Trump is somehow responsible for a terrorist that said property of Allah and had a Iranian t-shirt on, saying, oh no, that's Donald Trump's fault, not actually the terrorist's fault. That is the problem with
shut
so
up.
many of you on
Dude,
the
will
left.
you let me, Pierce,
Because
Pierce,
you don't
I'm not on the
understand
left.
that sometimes you have to take out bad guys.
I'm 7 clicks to the right
I actually
of
want to
you.
give
You're
two
just
other.
saying
I want to
dumb
give two
shit
other
and
panel.
interrupting me,
you are
dude.
not.
Shut up.
Look, two other panel
trust me,
members
I
have so
am.
far
You
said.
fucking-
Okay,
yeah.
guys, two other panel
Well,
members
Pierce, I
have
didn't
said
really
nothing.
get to
So
say
let's bring them
anything
in.
either, but all right, whatever.
Well, you said a lot,
What?
and it was interesting. I want to bring in.
Come on,
a
Dave.
xenophobic.
You said enough.
Jack,
Shut up now.
Jack, it's interesting to watch how the conservative right is reacting to this. You've got Tucker Carlson, one of the big figures of the conservative right, going off the deep end about this attack, calling it disgusting, calling it evil. You know, that would have been unprecedented 20 years ago to hear someone who was such a big figure on the conservative right in America going after a Republican government's decision to do something like this in such a virulent manner, rhetorically. What do you feel about this? I think a lot of what Dave Smith is saying is what the fears a lot of people on the right have about this too. The polls show this is a very unpopular move. Even Republicans are hitting now nearly below 50% support for this, which is unprecedented for a military action like this under a Republican president. How are you feeling about this?
Well, Piers, the last time I was on here, that's exactly what I said. I said that if this turns into a full-on regime change, forever war kind of prolonged, protracted situation, that's something that's going to prove to be very unpopular in this midterm year. And I'm certainly not going to change my analysis on that. That's just true. That's just the absolute truth of the matter. The question is, I think, and still remains, will this be a Venezuela-style situation where there's going to be one military operation, a brief operation, and then this protracted, or I should say, immediate ceasefire, and then a situation where a new leadership is brought in and the U.S. is working with that leadership? You did hear the president say that, I believe, to Brett Baer earlier today. And yes, he's been making a lot of statements across all of media and saying different things in different places. But we have heard, and I've heard from the administration, some rhetoric regarding this Venezuela model, which does seem to be very well celebrated. And of course, he pointed that out at the State of the Union last week. But look, Charlie Kirk is, is someone who lobbied very hard back in June, along with myself, to say, do not push this, and warned very succinctly, I believe, and very strongly, that younger voters are not going to be on board with this because they are war weary. After looking at Iraq, after looking at Afghanistan, after seeing the pullout in Kabul in 2021 and saying, what is it worth? What is it for? So you see this split really within MAGA, where older voters, it's 50, 55 up, very, very, very supportive. Then younger voters, very, very against. Gen Y, kind of in the middle. Global War on Terror veterans, generally in the middle. That's what's going on. President Trump ultimately is the only one who knows how it's going to shake out.
Gen Y, who the
Vance,
fuck
of course,
are they?
up there as well. And so that's going to be the situation. Look, those guys know what the situation is on the ground, and those guys obviously realize that they're the ones conducting this election right now in the midterms, and certainly they know what the stakes are.
He's insane. Don't go near.
Jojo, thank you for your patience, and welcome back to Uncensored. What is your view about the killing of the Ayatollah Khomeini? I mean, for 47 years, it seems
he's 87.
The Iranian
regime, they killed him in his home. I don't care how much you hate him. That's just fucking stupid. What's the point?
Terrorized its own people, which has
we
sponsored
finally got him
throughout the Middle East, predominantly aimed at Israel through the tentacles of Hezbollah, through the Houthis, through Hamas, and so on. It's celebrated October the 7th, and all these things. None of that is
really back, chat.
Up for debate. I mean, that's what they've been. The question becomes a little bit like the debate about Saddam Hussein at the start of the century, when I was editor of the Daily Mirror here in the UK and took a very strong position against that war, because I did not believe that we had established, the US and the UK in particular, a reason to take him out. That the weapons of mass destruction seemed to be a construct that wasn't built on evidence. That turned out sadly to be true. And we had 20 years of mayhem that came out of that, led predominantly by the rise of ISIS, who filled the vacuum and caused terrorism for 2 decades. So, I have a long memory when it comes to these kind of things. And that was a situation where it needed boots on the ground, which turned out to be a complete disaster. Here, Donald Trump is holding the possibility of committing more boots on the ground to a country of 93 million people, where you have 1.5 million heavily armed people that work for the regime, from the Republican Guard down to the regular army to the paramilitaries. This is an enormous number of heavily armed, committed to the regime people who will repress any uprising of the kind Donald Trump wants, I would imagine, in a very quick and very draconian way, as we saw only last month. So this seems to me, when you add in the attacks on hotels in Dubai and the rest of it, it seems to me a very precarious situation. So when Jack says, well, Donald Trump knows what's happening, I'm not completely convinced that he can know what's happening.
Actually, got to go, chat. Sorry. I'll see you guys tomorrow.